One of the most common outcomes that I see isn't failure. It's waking up in your late 30s in a life that you didn't consciously choose and you can't easily escape from. Not because you made one catastrophic mistake, but because you followed a series of reasonable steps that quietly locked you into place. And by the time that you realize what you actually wanted out of your life, your career, your income, your location, all of your obligations are all pointing in the wrong direction. And turning around from this point suddenly becomes extremely expensive. And the first compounding constraint that kicks this whole process off is your career choice. Once this is set, everything else starts to stack on top. Where you live, how much control that you have over your schedule, who you spend your time with, and what kind of risks you're allowed to take. If that first choice is made passively, the rest of your life quietly optimizes around that choice, whether it was the right choice or not. Now, the system isn't inherently evil. It doesn't force you into the wrong path. It just offers you a default. And defaults feel sensible. They pay the bills and they don't trigger alarm bells. They provide just enough to make you feel good. There's always a clear next step in the path, a promotion, a pay rise, a justification to stay a little bit longer. And because nothing breaks immediately, you assume that everything is fine. But here is the scary thing. The cost of changing direction grows non-linearly over time. Now, early on in your early 20s, for example, this cost is mostly just discomfort. More than anything else, your inexperience. You take a bit of a hit to your confidence and you start again from scratch. Not the end of the world. In your late 20s, however, there is a real financial cost. At this point, you've spent 5+ years building up expertise and skill in a given career path. And ultimately, switching lanes means that you're going to be earning less for a period of time in almost all cases. Where it gets tricky is further down the track than your late 20s, because later on, it's no longer just about you. At this point in your 30s, you now likely have shared financial structures. You've got a fixed geography with a network around you. You've got dependents, children, and ultimately you have people relying on you and you have expectations. You might even have your parents getting old and starting to need your support. At this point, changing direction does not just impact you or your lifestyle. It now impacts other people who are relying on the path that you chose or may not have chose earlier. I saw this really early on in life. My first job was working as a trainee chef, and not at all because I chose it strategically, simply because it was available as an option to me. A family member had opened a restaurant and offered me the position. At the age of 15, with fuck all else on the table, it was the best option available to me. I learned skills, I got competent, and I absolutely fucking hated it. Then I moved into construction and a job laboring, and it paid much better, and I hated it even more. And I remember at the time, a lot of people saying that it was a really good path, that I was surrounded by this culture where getting a trade or working in that type of job was seen as the thing to do. And the truth is, neither of those paths felt totally disastrous, especially not the construction path. In fact, they felt like they were improving, especially with construction. I had worked in that job for roughly 18 months and got to the point where you start as a laborer and you're literally holding a shovel, standing out in the weather, getting battered by the rain in winter time. But after you've done your time and proven yourself as a good worker and got some licenses and been trained, the job becomes quite cushy. You end up sitting in a machine like an excavator with music and air conditioning on more money. But ultimately, that's a trap. And I think the most dangerous careers aren't the ones that hurt immediately. They're the ones that become comfortable quite early on. You get more money, you get a promotion, you get a better title, your day-to-day becomes more bearable or even enjoyable. And all of that happens just fast enough that you stop questioning whether or not it's the right path and you just accept it. And there's a moment along this journey that people miss. And it's not when they're miserable or when they're burnt out, but when the path starts rewarding them just enough to quiet that voice in your head that asks, is this actually where I want to end up? Like, is this actually taking me where I want to go, to the life that I wanted for myself? And at this point, that's when inertia really takes over, because now staying in this job or whatever it is feels easier than having to choose all over again and start from scratch, even if you just fell into it. Now, ultimately, I knew that I never wanted to work in construction, and I quit that job, but I still wasn't sure exactly what path I wanted to go down. So I took the money I saved and I went traveling for a bit. And when I came back, I went to university, and ultimately I studied accounting and finance. And I did not choose accounting out of passion. I actually thought it was boring as hell. I hated it at school, and I had no emotional attachment at all. The only reason I chose it is after a thorough consideration of what it would unlock in the future. It was portable. It was well paid. It was in demand. It could be done remotely, and it could be turned into my own business. Effectively, what it did was it gave me future option value toward the life that I knew I wanted to build for myself, which was one where I owned my own business, where I could go anywhere I wanted in the world, and where I could earn a good income. Ultimately, I didn't choose a career that I liked. I chose one that I knew wouldn't trap me. I knew I'd have to do my time in the trenches, be in some shitty corporate office for a number of years in order to learn the trade, but I knew that I would be able to escape, and once I escaped, I wouldn't be going back. And I think that this is the lens that most people never use. Early career decisions should not be evaluated by comfort, prestige, or even short-term income. They should be evaluated by your future option value and whether that is consistent with the life that you actually want. You should be asking yourself, what future options does this career unlock? Does this path unlock if I stay on it? And just as importantly, which options does it delete? This isn't about quitting your job, and it's not about reckless resets. It's about authorship of your own life. If the path you're on aligns with the life that you actually want, then you can walk forward every day with confidence. But if it doesn't, then staying put is not neutral. It is a decision, and it compounds in the wrong way, whether you acknowledge it or not. And the tragedy isn't actually that people fail. It's that they succeed inside lives that they never consciously chose. They optimize for stability, comfort, and approval, only to later realize which futures were traded away in the process. And I think the key here is this. Life doesn't punish you for drifting. It rewards you just enough to keep you moving forward on that path until the cost of changing direction becomes prohibitive. Early clarity on this is very cheap, and late clarity is extremely expensive. And your career choice is really where that price curve starts. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. I drop one like this every 48 hours, and I hope to see you in the next one.